In this video, Noam Chomsky and Bruno Della, a visiting lecturer at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, discussed the legacy of Paulo Freire, a radical Brazilian educator. In his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, Professor Howard Gardner was the moderator of the discussion.
Pablo Freire, a Brazilian educator and philosopher who was a leading advocate of critical pedagogy. He is best known for his influential work, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is generally considered one of the foundational books of the critical pedagogy movement, and is the most cited book in social sciences.
Before starting with the meaning of the pedagogy of the oppressed, we should talk about the pedagogy of the oppressor, which is the standard model that is taught in most of the US schools, and Freire calls this the banking method. In the banking method, education is organized as hierarchy. The primary assumption is that the teacher possesses knowledge and the students do not. Knowledge flows in one direction, from the teacher to the students. Teacher is a subject as a person with subjective life experience and agency. Students are treated as a mere object. This pedagogy trains the students to accept these oppressive systems as a default when they encounter them in real life. This is the effect that Freire pedagogy attempts to suffer. In the pedagogy of the oppressed, the primary assumption is reversed. Both teachers and students are presumed to have knowledge and each can learn from another. The teacher, who is the teacher-student, possesses the problem to the student-teachers and invites them to reflect on it and share their thoughts together. This creates an environment of intersubjectivity where each person is valued by the valuable content to process, and, as a result, participants are empowered to see themselves as a human being.
This video discussed many historical events and talked about how priests and nuns were promoting the Gospels by adopting Pablo Freire's concept. According to Chomsky, known for his outspoken politics, Freire viewed learning as a critical dialogue between teacher and students, with a shared goal of raising consciousness about oppression and social justice. The term oppressed refers to the poor. It does not refer to the middle class, but based on Freire, in some sense, we are all oppressed. Paying attention to the Gospels is considered a deviation by the Vatican, but popes such as Benedict and Paul attempted to silence him. He answered them in a very intelligent way. He said, "They label me a saint when I donate to the needy. When I question why are they poor, they brand me as a communist." Freire did not only talk about literacy, but beyond that, literacy in means of consciousness and raising questions about the oppressed. Why should you accept and why you shouldn't? The curriculum in universities is framed. When people like Che Guevara talked about liberation, in books that were written, they were not only labeled dangerous, but they were labeled irrelevant, old-fashioned, and suppressed. They've also shed light on the importance of teacher training, because they are responsible for the future of mankind. He also believed that the tendency of social sciences to put everything in numbers in order to look serious is a way not to go deeper to the explanation. Della Chiesa finished by celebrating Freire's ongoing relevance for educators and social justice advocates. What Freire is describing is as old as mankind. What Freire tells us today is that we are spoon-fed an ideology of capitalist consumerism. The author and his book offer an enduring alternative to conformity, Della Chiesa said. And he encouraged people not to be passive and obedient. And this should be done through a perfect curriculum and educational system that enhance liberty instead of being framed. We recommend this video as it talks about Fairy's pedagogical model that aims to liberate human beings, enabling us to build a world in which it is easier to work together and care for one another. Education, at its best, is a process of discovery where learners and educators collaborate to develop and test different ways of understanding and acting.
Finally, it's interesting that some educators believe that pedagogy of the oppressed is still relevant and adapt its arguments to their contexts nowadays. We agree that teachers must know what is meaningful to the students. We also agree that pedagogy should treat the learner as a co-creator of knowledge.